My name is Elizabeth Lalonde, and I'm director of the Pacific Training Center for the Blind. And we're a new grassroots organization, a Canadian nonprofit organization, and we are founded and run by blind people. We provide blindness skills and independence training, and it's much needed in Canada. Unfortunately, our unemployment rate for blind Canadians is close to 80%. So we provide our services based on a high expectations of blind people, an empowering and positive philosophy. I trained at a school called the Louisiana Center for the Blind, and there's 3 empowering intensive skills training programs in the States, and that's what the Pacific Training Center for the Blind is modeling its program on. And eventually we want to build a intensive 9-month program where blind people can come from all over the country to train and learn independent skills of blindness and what we call alternative techniques of blindness. And so I trained there for 9 months, and I actually wore a blindfold, what we call sleep shades. And that's what I used because we focus on teaching people non-visual skills so that they can really hone in on becoming competent without the use of sight. And then later on, of course, if you have some sight, that's just a kind of a bonus, but you know how to do it confidently without the sight. And I'm also a graduate of the University of Victoria, and I was president of the Canadian Federation of Blind for 9 years, and I'm a mother of 2, because it sort of varies depending on the person, and every individual has, of course, their own ideas of what they prefer. I like the word blind because it really says what it is. I'm blind, and I'm proud to be blind, and I think it is respectable to be blind. Some people use the word visually impaired. I'm not as fond of that because I don't really like the word impaired. Partially blind or partially sighted is also quite common for people that have some residual vision. Sighted people who can see fully, we would call sighted people. Yes. So there's varying degrees of vision of what we call blind people under the category of legally blind. In fact, only about 10% of legally blind people are totally blind. And there can be anything from people with some light perception, the ability to see shapes and shadows, the ability to see clearly in some ways out of a pinpoint almost of vision, and then they don't have any side vision, for example. I'm the opposite. I see out of the sides of my eyes and I don't see out of the center. And some people see out of the center and they don't see out of the sides, so it can range depending on your field of vision, your distance. And so it really varies, and it can depend on lighting and situations. For example, in the dark, I don't see anything at all. In the daylight, I can see shapes and shadows.
Hi, my name is Danielle Fernandez, and I am a blindness instructor at the Pacific Training Center for the Blind. I'm actually from the United States. I am a graduate of the Louisiana Center for the Blind. In 2010, I have been blind for 12 years, and I have a certificate in hospitality. Yes, I love to travel as a blind person. I have been to Guatemala and now Canada. But I've after my training in Louisiana, it gave me the confidence and the independence to be able to travel wherever I wanted to go and visit people and experience new experiences. So I don't know, I'm so happy to be here and to help other blind people at the Pacific Training Center to get that confidence and independence that will help better their lives. So blindness is a wonderful word to use as a blind person. It's not a bad word, and I think a lot of people associate blindness as a bad thing. I love being blind. Just because I can't see doesn't mean that I can't enjoy life. Some people like to use the word visually impaired, but as some people that I know, the word impaired at the end kind of makes it, I don't know, to me makes it feel like there's something else wrong with me. So I like using partially sighted, because I only have partial sight, if that was the case. I actually I was in an airport one time, and obviously I am totally blind, and they would not accept the word blind. They kept calling me visually impaired. And I tried to explain to them that I was blind, and they're like, well, we can't say that. I'm like, yes, you can. I am blind. If I was not blind, then I could understand you saying that, but I am blind. So please, people need to understand that it's a okay thing to say. It's not offensive. It's not making anybody any different than anybody else. And for the people who do have some vision, it shouldn't be an embarrassing word. It's something that we all live with, and people shouldn't be afraid of it. It should be something that they should be proud of, because I'm proud of it.
Well, there are some best practices that are really helpful. Being very verbal is very helpful. For example, don't point and say, oh, it's over there. If someone says, oh, where's the bathroom? Oh, over there. So it really does help to have some verbal directions. They don't have to be, super detailed, but just as long as it's said out loud, that can be really helpful. And just some basic orientations of a classroom, what the size is maybe, and how it's laid out if there's chairs or tables. But it doesn't have to be overly descriptive, because we usually know what we're expecting in a classroom.
I was a student at a college, and I had some really good teachers who were just normal, and they didn't treat me any different than any other students. I would go in there and I would actually ask questions. They can definitely ask me if I would need any help, but at the same time, I would say, so can you give me just a brief description of what your classroom looks like? Are there chairs? Are there rows? I just need to know that. I don't need to know every little detail in the classroom. I just want to know, okay, this is the front, this is where your desk is. But you don't need to guide me there. You just need to tell me where it's at. Just give me left, right, forward, backwards, behind directions. You don't, I sometimes use my hand and my finger, and I point and I say, is it that way? And I point my finger, and when I point my finger and you say, yes, it's that direction, then I follow where my finger was. I understand that direction. But if you point and you say it's over there, that's completely different, because I don't know where that is. I don't know where over there is. So to be able to understand, and that's, I think, some people don't understand giving directions. I understand that some people believe that they're not good at giving verbal directions. But we are trained to help you help us give verbal directions. And no matter, that's why we point our finger, is to help you just say yes or no, if that's all we want to know. And this is actually something that I love to talk about, is the do's and don'ts of how to talk to a blind person and how to not touch them. You can ask a person, can I touch you? That's okay. Don't just grab them, because grabbing, if somebody doesn't like to be grabbed and you just automatically grab them, they're not going to be very happy about it. They feel, I've been pulled around, I've been pushed, because a person doesn't understand that we're just like you. I'm pretty sure you would not like to be pushed or pulled or grabbed. Anybody. So what I've told people is, if you see a blind person and you would like to help them, you would ask them, excuse me, can I help you? 1. 2, would you like directions, or would you like to follow me, or would you like my arm? You give them the options of what you would like them to do. not just grab and, I've had people like full on two-handed grab on my arm and yank me across to another area. And I'm the kind of person who am not going to get horribly upset depending on what it is, but I have known people who will they get very upset. Very upset. And it's not the best thing in the world. So, instructors, teachers need to be mindful of treating their students normally, just like everybody else, even though we might need a few accessibilities, like possibly having you email us things early or giving us PowerPoints, different things like that. But in class, we just want to be like everybody else. So, it's we have regular conversations. We might like the same things. So I would say, being descriptive in, maybe a PowerPoint presentation, maybe it doesn't have to be super detailed, but, maybe you have a picture on the board and you're talking about it, but I don't know what it is. I have no idea. So sometimes I've actually raised my hand because they didn't say anything, because they didn't tell me, they didn't physically say, verbally say what the picture is. So I might have to raise my hand and be like, can you tell me what the picture is? And then they'll like, oh yeah, I forgot. So I like to, I would just say, just be slightly mindful of knowing that you might have somebody who can't see that. So you could be like, oh, this is a picture of something. I have no idea what it would be, but this is a picture of a dog or a family. This is and that's all I need. I don't need any other descriptions. I just want something to understand what you're talking about. I, as a Louisiana Tech University student, I used Moodle, and I had a very good relationship with my teachers, and I was able to let them know that, hey, you can put a PowerPoint up on Moodle, but that doesn't help me. So is there any way to put a text document? So it's so I can use it. Or they might email it to me. But Moodle wasn't horribly difficult. It actually worked somewhat with JAWS. There's still a little bit of Flash in it, which does not work with JAWS. Flash is more of like a picture-based type program, and it like if there's a button, I can't hit the button. It doesn't register with my speech program. So in that case, I would have to try to find a reader or somebody who was sighted to help me click that button so I could do stuff. So there's like I couldn't use the calendar. It had to be kind of more of like a text-based type thing. But I could download files that the teacher would put up there. If I needed to write a paper, she would put the stuff up on Moodle, and then I would go and I would download it, and then I'd read it, and then I'd write my paper. And then she would have us submit it somewhere else for copyright, law stuff. So, but other than that, I really thought Moodle was good. I've never used Blackboard, and I've heard some other programs. Also, a friend of mine who's also blind, she said as an online class, Silverlight is not accessible. And she said that it's called the grade book, was not accessible for her. She was not able to put her assignments up to that. She had to actually email it to her instructor because it was not accessible for her. So those things, we would love to be able to do those, but since the world has gotten very visual, flash-based, we're not able to be as independent on the computer as we would like because of that. So I would say for instructors, if you are going to have a blind student in your class or any person who is disabled, just understand that, you might be swapping emails with them and you might be sending them stuff. I also took my thumb drive 2 class, and, I had just an empty flash drive, and I would take it over there and I would give that to them so they could put stuff on there for, and then they might give it to me the next day. So that way I would have the information, but it could also be emailed. I know some schools use Dropbox, and they might have the assignments in Dropbox. So there's many ways of making things so much easier. But I've never actually done an online course.
I think again back to being verbal. I know that I've been in situations in classrooms where the teacher just forgot that I wouldn't be able to see, so they might point to when I was going to school, they would have overhead projectors, and I know they have PowerPoint presentations now, but they might point and say, well, this here and that, and we're talking about this subject, but they may forget to actually say, well, what is the subject, or what they're actually pointing to, and describe that. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be in great detail, but just to enunciate that for the benefit of the blind student. Handouts are, if they could be given to the blind individual ahead of time, that is so helpful, because then if they're emailed, many of us have talking computers, or we have some kind of adaptive technology that we're using that will allow us to read the information. So if we can get it ahead of time, that really helps. Also, it's really hard if something's handed out in class, for example, and we don't have an ability to read it at the time, or we haven't been able to arrange for a reader. It's really helpful to have that warning, or I guess at the very least to have that emailed to us after the class would be really helpful. So we need to order the textbooks in an accessible format ahead of time, whether that be e-text or audio recording, Braille. We need to have some advanced warning so we can order these books ahead of time. So getting the book lists in advance is very helpful, so that we don't get behind and we can keep up with everybody in the class. One of the most important things, as well as the white cane, is Braille, and we really promote the use of Braille. It's not being taught as much as it should be. Unfortunately, only 10% of blind children are learning Braille these days, so we're really trying to promote Braille. And at the Pacific Training Center, we actually teach a course called Right in the Dot, Learn the Basics of Braille for the Public, and it's a really fun, interactive course that people can come and just learn a little bit about Braille and its history, and learn how the dots work. And it's really actually not as difficult as people think it is. So I actually have people reading a little bit by the end of the workshop, and using a slate and stylus to write some of the Braille alphabet.
They are coming up with so many new products that are helping us be able to adapt to the regular world. Not saying we're in a weird world, but it's still challenging a little bit when it comes to, like I said, flash-based stuff. So we have the Apple computers that have voiceover. We have the iPads, the computers, the iPhones, and that actually helps us a lot. We are able to do so much more because of Apple. And I hear that they are coming out with more Droid stuff that has voices, some type of voiceover type deal. Computers with JAWS or Window Eyes or NVDA, those also are on totally, they do kind of the same thing, but they're also very different from each other. So one might be able to read PowerPoints and one might not be able to, or one might be able to look at pictures, or some kind of doing drawing or some kind of thing. I'm just using an example, but they're able to do different things. So sometimes we're not trained in all of them. Like I only use JAWS, but I know lots of people who do use NVDA, Window Eyes, and they're just fine the way, they're like, I don't want to use JAWS. And I'm like, but JAWS is awesome. They're like, no, it's not. So, every blind person is different when it comes to their technology. Some people are really good at technology, and some people, like myself, are kind of average. I do have a Braille note, which is, it's like a laptop computer, very small. It has a Braille display. You can either have a QWERTY keyboard, or you can have, it's like 6 cells like you're writing on a Braille writer, but it shows the Braille underneath after you're writing it, so you can kind of see what you're writing and edit it or however. And that's one good thing to take into class for note taking. But we also use laptops, just any old laptop, and put our programs on it so that way we can use that. We have slate and styluses, which are like our pen and paper, and those are very important because if we had to take a quick note, we're not able to, we might be able to whip out our phones really quick and maybe voice record or something, but depending on the information that we need, we might be faster at a slate and stylus than we would with anything else because we've been trained. And writing down a number, physically writing down a number, sometimes better than trying to record it, or we've gotten into the world of technology where we just put it on our phones and we don't know, I don't know what number is what anymore. I used to memorize numbers. I don't even do that anymore, so it's really bad. When I want to call somebody, I'm like, I don't know their number. Oh man, I'm stuck. So, but canes are also technology in some ways because they help us so much. They're our eyes. Our computers, our technology, are our ears in some ways, but they're also our eyes. But our canes are our number one thing in our lives that are so important. And that's why at the Pacific Training Center, we are wanting to give those people the technology and the experience and the confidence to be able to travel and to be able to do whatever they want, to go places, to take their computer to the coffee shop and hang out on Wi-Fi and, write emails, instead of being stuck in one place and not being able to go and socialize. And that's what's, really important. So we want to give the accessibility to everyone.